Bastrop Colovista and a very important person to this event, Lisa. Please let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much, Zach. One more round of applause for him. He is really the backbone of this event, and we are so grateful to the ACC. They have been a wonderful sponsor of the Bastrop County Young Republicans. And I just want to thank our entire community. I look out here and I see friendly faces that I know. Our community has been so supportive. I took the chair seat in July of 2025, and we have grown 1,000% since in our membership, and that is because of our community. You guys have volunteered, you have sponsored us, and you have been sharing, and I just want to thank all of you so much for that. And I want to thank our co-hosts, the Austin Young Republicans, obviously the ACC, and Ringel and Breimer. Jimmy Breimer is here. He is our moderator tonight, helping us get this together and making Bastrop the focal point. Bastrop has been having a moment, and we are on the map. I'm really, really proud to be president of the YR chapter of Bastrop because we are doing so much when it comes to reindustrialization. That being said, if you'll join me in a short prayer to thank God for all that he is doing here and in Texas. Heavenly Father, I thank you for bringing us all together today. I thank you for what is going on in Bastrop, and I thank you for community. I just pray that you are in our hearts and minds as we grow together as a community in Bastrop and in Texas. And God bless Bastrop, God bless Texas, and God bless America. Thank you. Amen. Oh, and to introduce our next wonderful host, Benjamin Schrader of the Austin Young Republicans, the president and chair, and my good friend.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Hello, my friends. It is so good to see all of you here tonight. I have to say, myself, Zach, Lisa, and Jimmy, we have been working on this event, and we're so happy that it really came together. So I just want to say that it has been such a privilege to work with ACC, that the Austin Young Republicans will always be a supporter of reindustrialization, of nuclear energy, as we have many members who work at the Capitol, and it is our priority that this country, the greatest country on earth, stays the greatest country on earth, and the only way to do that is through reindustrialization. To keep things brief, allow me to welcome my dear friend and the Texas National Committee man, Jimmy Breimer, who will be doing your panel tonight. Couldn't see about that.
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This was many months in the making and planning. Couldn't have done without ACC. Lisa is also my paralegal and protege, Bastrop, YRs, and Austin, my best friend, Ben. Couldn't have done without anyone, and I couldn't have done without you all coming, because if no one came, it wouldn't be a fun event. So, my name is Jimmy Breimer. I am the Young Republican National Committee man, and I'm a local attorney here, Hones, Ringel, and Breimer. We do business law, real estate, and probate and estate planning. But enough about me. You didn't come to hear me talk about myself. You came to hear these wonderful speakers. So, I will first introduce Becky Womble. Come on out, Becky. Becky is the CEO of the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce, a 5-star chamber, which I don't know if you know, but it's pretty hard to do. With 10 years, Becky, you worked on that?
Thank you, Marcel.
10 years, and she has really made sure that Bastrop is on the map for a place to do business and supported businesses. As a member of the chamber myself, couldn't have done half things I did without her in the chamber. So you'll be hearing from her about how Bastrop is reindustrializing and how business could benefit from nuclear energy. Our next speaker we're going to call is James Dickey. Come on out, James. All right. James Dickey has been a good friend of mine. He was chairman of the party. He was also the Travis County chairman of the party, and I've known him since I was in college, 10, 11 years. He's done a great job, and now he has his own consulting company and works with One Nuclear, who's working to bring SMRs to Texas and the nation more broadly. Next, I'm going to call Mr. Clay Reed. Come on down. Wherever you want.
Okay.
He runs the Texas Nuclear Alliance, the premier policy and organization in Texas, making sure that all the legislators in Texas know about the new developments in nuclear and how it can help power our businesses and our grid. And last but not least, we were going to have Stan come, but he got sick. So last minute, we got the energy man himself from TPPF, Mr. Carson. It's called New Life, correct? Life Power. He runs the Life Power part of TPPF. For you who don't know what TPPF is, because you're not policy nerds, it is the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and everything related to policy, they do it, and he's in charge of all of their energy and power. So he knows a lot about it, especially the grid. So he'll be talking about that tonight. So thank you all for coming, and we will get started.
So, I was exposed to anti-nuclear politics, which really go back to the 1970s. Nuclear waste had been a pretty convenient choke point for the anti-nuclear crowd. And I was sort of mesmerized that was able to get a foothold in a state like Texas that has always been very energy forward, always been, we're going to build big things and big projects and reindustrialize our country. I mean, that's been a mantra that's been Texas's mantra for many years. And one thing that we noticed was that there was no real voice speaking for the industry, and that was a big reason why the anti-nuclear crowd was able to get a foothold in the state of Texas. And so, my wife, who's right here and has really been instrumental in helping us found the organization, calls it my midlife crisis. But, essentially we got a bee in our bonnet about this and decided that we needed an organization that was going to provide some sanity, some rational discussion around nuclear, so that type of politics was not going to frustrate our energy policy going forward. I'll be the first to admit we were wandering in the dark for a couple years. Really, it was just me and her, kind of one foot in front of the other. And then the data center boomed, which I know we're going to talk about later. And we happened to be in the right time at the right place. And we're up to about 80 members now, and we represent really the entire value chain of nuclear, from your traditional very large merchant utilities like Constellation and Vistra, to the new developers of SMRs, to uranium mining, all the way across the fuel cycle, to large loads like Google and Dow Chemical, Samsung, and others. And so we're really kind of the voice for the industry in the state of Texas. And it's something that really didn't exist in this state and really didn't exist in any state across the country. We're really proud of what we built, and we're starting to see other states sort of emulate what we're doing. And as they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. And so it's been a great journey, but we've got a long way to go. And I'm sure we're going to talk about some of those issues here in a minute.
All right. That's it. To Mr. Andy. So, you're the former. All right. That takes us to Mr. James Dickey here. So,
17 to
James
20.
Dickey, you are the former Texas GOP chairman for the whole state. What years was that again? 2018 to 2020?
Well, 17.
Very nice. And you
so because I work
ADP Consulting
nationally for the
you also work with
Republican
One Nuclear.
Party,
Tell me what that's about.
I got reached out to by One Nuclear. And One Nuclear is so far the sole importer of Rolls-Royce small modular reactors for the United States. And small modular reactor is one of those terms that it kind of rolls off the tongue, and it's become used a lot, but it's a very nebulous definition. A lot of people will tell you it means roughly 10 to 300 megawatts for perspective. The Rolls-Royce SMRs is their adaptation of their UK nuclear sub-technology. So it's 480 megawatts. It's by far the biggest of these small modular reactors. The point of being a modular reactor is that one of the big challenges we had in the United States, and we had many when trying to roll out nuclear, one of the many was that they were big and they were bespoke. They were completely custom. Every single nuclear plant that was built was completely customized to its location. Well, it doesn't take rocket science to know that is a recipe for making it very expensive and very time-consuming. And so all of the folks, regardless of the size of what they're generating, who want to do SMRs are doing SMRs so that they can, as much as possible, automate and mechanize the production of all the stuff around the reactor so that they can just replicate it and have them available and have all the improvements that come with factory line production of a product, including better tolerances, less variances, more reliability, more consistency. That helps everyone in the chain, including regulators. And so the move towards SMRs is fantastic, and it's great to have a brand like Rolls-Royce. And it was fun to have President Trump over in the UK meeting with their PM and talking about, our product. That is a lot of fun. But the more exciting thing to me than that was when we met with both the NRC and the Department of Energy, which nuclear is one of the few things that is regulated nationally in the United States. Kind of wish we had a railroad commission instead that was over nuclear in Texas. But to their credit, the Trump administration has been very adamant about being aggressive about wanting to roll out nuclear. It is far past time. We've been sitting on this for decades, and we have lost out on a bunch of reliable, low-cost baseload power that's consistent, would not have gone off in Winter Storm Uri, that we could have counted on, and that we could be, who knows what more we could be producing if we had 10 times the energy at 1/5 the price. And we could have had that if we had not had groundswells of opposition to nuclear. And thankfully, President Trump put in EOs, and meeting with the NRC and the DOE, they have been adamant. They want to see approvals in 18 months or less, and that is fantastic.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I learned much there. Mr. Carson Clayton, tell us about what you do.
And sorry that
as in charge of
Gertie's wasn't here. If y'all are all
life incentive at
Syndra this way, I'll let them know about it. All right. So TPPF, obviously, we are involved in lots of different policy issues. The one I handle is energy, primarily the energy grid here in Texas. And do a lot of work with the legislature, do a lot of research, and we're excited about the development of nuclear power here in this state. I think my first time I started really thinking about nuclear was, I think, after a meeting with Reed, when Jason Isaac was in my spot, and he had brought me on, and Reed came and said, Texas can lead on this, and TPPF needs to get on this boat. We agreed. We definitely did. And so excited to see back in 2023 when Governor Abbott, called for the PUC to put together the working group and figure out how Texas can continue to lead the nation, not only in all the things we already lead on, but in nuclear energy as well. Happy to see the exclusive release of that report at Reed's conference, later, I think about a year later. And then that ultimately culminated in the HB 14, the legislation that passed last session, developing the Texas Advanced Nuclear Energy Office. So really excited about the work that Jared Schaefer is doing over there. We had a conversation much like this one a little bit ago at the foundation, talking about all the work they're doing with the kind of the permits going forward and what the future looks like. And for Texas and nuclear, I think coming up into this next session, there's going to be a lot more prioritization of not just leading in the deployment of nuclear energy in the state, but the supply chain and the workforce, and making sure that we can export this technology to the rest of the country and ideally to the world. But at Life Powered, we like nuclear for the same reason, we like natural gas a whole lot. It's reliable, consistent, and affordable power if deployed correctly. So our priorities, going into the legislative session, are the same as every session, is like, how do we address our current energy market to make sure that it is valuing the reliability that natural gas, that coal, and that nuclear can provide to the Texas grid. And I think Bastrop is just it's like a fantastic example of what's needed to deploy nuclear energy in this state, and that's revenue certainty, that's guaranteed customers. If you see the industrial growth right here around you, we got SpaceX, right? We got chip manufacturing, we got data centers. The big problem that nuclear reactors, big or small, face in this state right now are the exact same problem that natural gas faces in this state. There's no revenue certainty. They are competing with an overinvestment in wind and solar, over half the grid at this point. And our market, unfortunately, treats all of those resources as if they are the exact same thing. There are certain characteristics that natural gas has, that coal has, that nuclear has, that not only are required to run a grid, wind and solar don't have them, and they're treated as if they do in the market. So revenue certainty is a big question, and I think what's happening here in this city is a good example of, how nuclear reactors, small reactors or large, can, benefit from industrial growth that needs baseload power. And I think, when Rita and I were first talking about this, the reliability question was talked about a whole lot, and the role that nuclear can play in that. And over, about a year and a half of that, then data centers came on the map, and the messaging correctly changed to how can nuclear benefit data centers? There's lots of concern about what data centers are going to do to the systems we all share. What problems is it going to cause with our electric grid? What problems is it going to cause with water? My take, it's not going to cause, those are problems that have existed for a long time. Data centers are coming in really fast. They're exposing those problems to everybody. And how do we solve those problems? We need reliable power. We need it, and to get that, the revenue certainty that data centers provide, that other industrial growth provides, that's what we need to build out nuclear in this state, and eventually onto the grid, so we could all benefit from it when our AC is running, our heaters running, and everything else. So excited to see Texas leading on this. There's no doubt in my mind we're going to see some of the first SMR deployments here in the state. From what I'm hearing, I think July is going to be an exciting month. So keep your eyes out on that. I live in Austin. I think many of you do as well. And just all the different, I'm meeting with a different nuclear company, I think every month, based here in Texas, based in Austin. So it's very exciting to see where we're going to go in this.
Thank you. All right. That's that. Yeah, come on. All right. So,
Thank you. All right. And the best for last, Becky Wong. All right, Becky. So how is the chamber seeing this kind of reindustrialization in Bastrop County? Because I believe we've seen a lot of it, and we've even done some tours. If you're an influential investor, you get to go on those. But tell us about how Bastrop is reindustrializing, because I think people here fairly know what the chamber is.
Amazing time to be here in Bastrop County, and just the Bastrop region in general. I was just looking up some numbers, and by 2050, the population of Bastrop County is supposed to be 200,000 people. Let that sink in a minute. 200,000 people. We have all kinds of new businesses moving here. As far as the chamber's perspective, our legacy businesses that are here, we're just encouraging them to continue to, evolve, because we do have a lot of new industry moving here. We're encouraging them to continue to train employees, because there is going to be, as new businesses continue to move here and they pull on our workforce, they're going to need to pay well to their employees to keep them. But it's an exciting time, and our businesses are excited. I feel like overall in our county that people are welcoming all this growth that's coming. And the things that my panelists are talking about when it comes to energy and stuff, these are things that we're going to need to continue to thrive. And so, again, it's just an amazing time to be here and be a part.
all right. Now, Mr. Clay, that's to you. He'll step out in the floor.
All right. Now, Mr. Clay, back to you. Given that Governor Abbott and the Texas Advanced Nuclear Energy Office opened applications for a historic $350 million nuclear development fund, why?
It is, but in the grand scheme of
really
things,
jumpstart
nuclear
energy
traditionally,
Texas.
it's one of its biggest problems has been that it's been very expensive to build. As James was talking about a minute ago, traditionally the way of scaling nuclear was to build extremely large reactors. We're talking a gigawatt plus in terms of the power it provides. Very bespoke projects, I think, is the word that James used appropriately, which means a ton of CapEx expenditure on the front end. The good news is these plants last 60 plus, really probably more like 80 to 100 years. But they have traditionally been very expensive to build. And I think when we start talking about reindustrialization, one of the things that we at root are talking about is this country finding its way to building things again the way that we used to build things. This country used to build large-scale reactors in 4 or 5 years, and they used to do it at a fraction of the cost of what it now takes us to do. The new way of scaling nuclear is, James used the word SMR earlier, or acronym SMR, small modular reactors, is using manufacturing or the factory setting to try and bring that to scale nuclear through more modular type construction. So rather than bespoke, a reactor rolls off the assembly line every day or so, and then it's very easy to put together on site after it's been trucked there on the back of a truck. And that is, as of now, not proven yet, but either route you go, as of right now, it's very expensive to build the next reactor, whether it's a first SMR or it's the next large-scale reactor. And so what HB 14 is designed to do, in addition to setting up a nuclear office, which is really kind of a one-stop permitting shop for anybody who wants to build nuclear in the state, not to issue a new regulatory scheme or create a new regulatory scheme, but to help facilitate you through the permitting process at the state of Texas, was the creation of a development grant that is really designed to push nuclear back down the cost curve so that we can get to a point where the private market takes over. And that's going to happen through a couple different ways. If it's a large-scale project, we're talking about a direct investment, a grant, a reimbursement grant that would defray the very expensive CapEx that it takes to build that. With respect to SMRs, I think what you're likely to see are direct investments through a grant reimbursement program designed to defray the cost of building the manufacturing facility that is going to manufacture these SMRs, because the first one or two are going to be very expensive because they are going to encompass the entire cost of building the factory. And so what this is designed to do, again, is to push the industry down the cost curve so that we get to a point where these things are much more affordable in a business-to-business setting. $350 million is our initial, is what the legislature was able to appropriate for us last session. We're super excited about that. I think what we're going to see, the application process just opened back April 1st. I think what we're going to see is that $350 million is going to be oversubscribed. And I think the legislature is going to see a massive return on that investment in the sense that Texas is going to be the place where we see more deployment of SMRs, potentially the next phase of large-scale nuclear, and almost certainly where the industry is going to put down its manufacturing roots, whether that's manufacturing reactors or whether that is onshoring, and this is an issue we may talk about later, onshoring the fuel cycle, which we have stupidly outsourced to Russia and China over the last, really since the end of the Cold War.
And we're very much following a, don't overpromise, over-deliver instead. And part of that time, the president and his team have been very aggressive on wanting to improve what has been, for some companies, a decade-plus long just getting your permit process time. And they have committed to an 18-month turnaround. That is amazing. That's still 18 months, though. And so the first year and a half is really just that. Plus, it takes a couple of months to actually put together the application and get it approved. So you spend nearly 2 years just making sure everything's approved. So a 5-year timeline is kind of an acceptable timeline for any kind of really massive project. I do know that there are there are manufacturers of smaller SMRs who are hoping to get to the point where, as their factory gets rolling, that they'll be producing one a week, one a day kind of volume. And I would love that, and it's possible. We do expect to see at least 4 advanced technology nuclear reactors running by July 4th. we'll see. Right? You can't always push science, right? But a lot of this has moved from the realm of science to construction, and you can push construction with some constraints.
So
I wouldn't bet on less than 3 years. I would not bet on longer than 6 or 7.
So, piggybacking. Oh,
Wouldn't bet on.
It's going to be the earliest.
Great point. I should have mentioned.
I was going to say something else too. I was on a conference call today at about 1:00, and it was with chamber execs from across the nation. And Texas is definitely leading the way in this. I mean, to hear their stories and what they're going through, and businesses moving out of their state. I mean, we are so blessed to be right here in this state.
Yeah, going that's the what? Look, I
going back to the grid, Becky. What companies have moved in that are requiring large amounts of energy in Bastrop? And if you can tell us, 'cause I know some of it's secret, what companies will be moving in? Because we have all of Elon Musk's company, but I think one of them
I remember
in South Texas.
it was
And then we have that
June
Korean
of
company
21.
that services them. So what companies do we have that are on the grid, and which ones?
And Rick goes, what the hell is going on here? And it was, Elon Musk putting his flagship down. But yeah, obviously the Boring Company, SpaceX. And by the way, they have been phenomenal partners. I want people to know that. I get interviewed all the time. I had somebody from Finland last week asking, we're looking for a scoop. I'm just like, they've been phenomenal partners. The people that work there are amazing people. They are bringing in high-paying jobs, which we needed. We've got LS Electric, a Korean company that's here. Obviously the Boring Company, but they've been great partners in letting us go out there and do tours, letting our leadership class go through there, participating in our youth career days, coming down for a boo bash and handing out candy and stuff. But there's also like TCS Mechanical, who's providing a lot of jobs here. But yeah, it's exciting time, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on our infrastructure. So we need to be intentional and smart about what we do when it comes to roads. And but yeah, it's a cool time. It's a real cool time. I don't have any secrets or anything, but I said I don't have any secrets to let out right now. But
Sounds exciting.
Good app.
All right.
if you were out of water for 2 days, we need to do some disaster preparedness with you. I said if you were out of water for 2 days, we need to do some disaster preparedness with you.
What?
running down. Push.
Sounds fun. All right, now it's time for the spicy question for which you all came. All right. I'll start with you, Reed. So,
That was a topic of discussion at 1:00 on my conference call.
Are they good or bad for Texas?
Okay, it's working for now. Well, the short answer is good. Let me say something.
Well, that's what y'all came for. I know.
Back on what Becky is talking about, what's going on in Bastrop. And I think this is a compliment. I saw the commissioner there. Compliment to the commissioner. A compliment to Representative Gerdes, who is a huge friend of nuclear and a great representative for this county. And a huge compliment to Becky. I mean, Bastrop, goodness gracious, what is happening here? What are you guys putting in the water? It is unbelievable. And I will tell you what is happening. This is incredible growth, and there are growing pains with that growth. And it takes leadership and it takes courage to power through that. And Bastrop is, in my mind, is the example for the rest of Texas, because where this is happening is in rural Texas, like counties like Bastrop that are adjacent to the big urban areas. And you guys are an example for how to do it and how to be leaders and how to have the courage to power through some of the growing pains. And y'all need to applaud yourself for that, because it is absolutely amazing what is happening here. And it's not just changing Texas, it is changing the U.S. and it is changing the world. And that is the truth. That sounds like platitudes and exaggeration, and it is not, because, and this is to answer your question, AI and data centers they have to be good. We do not have a choice. If we do not win this race with China, the old adage, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If we don't win this race with China, forget Texas, forget the U.S. Everything that we know and love about this state, it will be gone. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but not long after that. It is a moral imperative that the United States step up and lead on AI. And that takes courage. It takes leadership. And Bastrop is an example for the rest of the state. And I hope that other counties across this state are paying attention to the leadership that this county is putting forth, because you guys have had a massive amount of growth. And it's easy to look at Elon Musk from California and say, well, I don't care about going to Mars. But look what he's building here. I mean, Starlink, he's changing the world. He's changing the complexion of national security and global security. And his next thing is we're going to take AI to outer space so that we beat China. And you guys are enabling that. And that is an incredible thing. And you ought to be really, really, really proud of that, in my opinion. So the answer is yes.
I want to talk about the leadership a second. If you didn't know, we have something that's called BEST, and it's Bastrop, Elgin, Smithfield, Texas. And it was started by Judge Randy Fitz, and it was just the county judge and I think city managers and stuff. And it was like a monthly breakfast meeting. And then when Judge Peggy Wallachek, I'm not sure how I pronounced that right, somebody might have to, how did I pronounce it right? She expanded that, and it started to include the EDC directors, the city managers, the chamber directors, the economic development people. And we meet together once a month as a group. And out of that has spawned our leadership program, our countywide mixer, and all kinds of other things. But that group coming together and talking monthly, regularly, and building relationships. I mean, we've all got each other's cell numbers. I think that's why we are seeing what we're seeing today, because I can tell you I came from a county that was 30 miles away, and if Lockhart was on fire, Luling would not give them a bucket to put it out. Honest to God, I tried to, 7 years was on the mission field over there, tried to start a leadership program, and no, you're Lockhart, we're Luling, we don't mix. And it was the same county. And so I really have to give kudos to our best leadership, and that's an acronym for our 3 cities.
The question that
Becky leads.
I not ask.
All right, James, you're next. So, same question, you data centers, good or bad?
So
You can opine about national security.
I heard Senator Perry, Chairman Perry,
You brought up, so
as he was talking about water, he said one of the things that was an epiphany for him was when he realized that data centers might not only not be the problem, they might actually be the solution. And the example he gave was meeting with the Google guys from Stargate, and they were talking about how they used to use this very inexpensive but very wasteful water evaporative cooling method, and now instead they were going to use a lot more energy. It was going to cost them more, but they were going to use this closed loop system that wouldn't use hardly any water at all. And to his credit, Senator Perry said, "Okay, wait a minute. Like, that's going to cost you a lot more money." And they said, "Yeah, it's a lot more money. It's a lot more electricity, but it'd save a lot of water." And he said, "Well, your building's going to be in this water district, and this water district's already identified that below the aquifer that's running out of water, there's a brackish aquifer that's got a couple 100 years worth of water in it that nobody can get to because we don't have the capex to, buy the equipment and desalinate it." And he said, "Why don't y'all run the numbers?" And they came back and said, it'd be cheaper for us to pay for you guys to be able to reach and desalinate that water than to spend the money to use the method that didn't use any water. And so they're not only going to not be a drain on the local water supply, they are going to provide the key to the next 100 years of water supply. And you know what? The alternative is not data center or beautiful, idyllic land that never looks any different, notwithstanding the wonderful 54,000 acre park that got donated this weekend, right? That's very cool. But it's not data center or that. It's data center or the next 2,000 houses, or data center or the next 200 warehouses, or data center and the next shopping mall if those ever come back, right? It's data center or a thing. And the unique thing is data centers are uniquely able to invest the money to grow the electricity supply and grow the water supply, and do it while not being a burden to the county tax rolls. They don't cause a lot of crime. They don't cause a bunch of kids in school. They don't cause a lot of traffic on the streets, and they don't throw a lot of parties on the weekend that the sheriff has to respond to. So, yes, they're good.
All right. They impressed me. Good, but I really want to
All right. Same question to you, good sir. Bad or good, but I really want you
I
touched
think
on. I
that
really want you to touch on what issues they're exposed
solve
to.
most of the problems.
What are those exact
talked about
issues?
at TPP
Are they bad or good?
and at the Capitol all the time. So first of all, I mean, it sounds like we have a commissioner here that did it right. That's the first step here. There's so much misinformation and so much just the knowledge gap is huge. The data is not readily available, right? Like there's so much mystery around this. And I think that's for a community that wants to follow y'all's lead. It's, getting the city councils, the mayors and the commissioners to understand what a data center is, how you interact with them every day already, all throughout your day, and the benefits they can provide to your community. And some people are just not going to get on board. Some people, there's AI data centers and data centers that have nothing to do with AI, but that connection's always going to exist. And people are just going to think AI bad, data centers bad. And I get it. Like, I get the fears. I have a new daughter and I have another one coming. Like, I get the fears. Like, what's the future going to look like for them? Is this going to lead to a Skynet Terminator situation? I would say if this results in a Terminator, I really hope the Terminator has made in the USA stamped on its rear end and not Beijing, right? So now, what are the issues we're talking about all the time? Power, right? Data centers, you know what they need? They need reliable baseload power. They want to pay for it. They want to build it. There's generators. There's natural gas generators in this state. Every single year, they're not worried about their wind and solar portfolio. They're worried about their natural gas portfolio. And every year, they're saying, are we going to close down the plant? Well, data centers are going to come. And if they don't build their own, they're going to contract those existing plants, give them the revenue certainty that they need. Water, a possibility in the future. I'm talking to a couple different companies who are using produced water for their data centers, right? Now, this would be like an open loop evaporative system, which we typically don't like when it comes to data centers, but produced water, if you're not aware, is the nastiest, grossest, most toxic water. You don't want to touch it. You get it when you drill for oil. Every barrel of oil you get about 10 barrels of water, this produced water. Well, there's data centers that are using that to cool down their facilities and evaporates clean water away, and you have much less produced water to store in the ground, which is causing major issues in the Permian right now. We got it coming out in other places after we put it in. If that becomes an actual solution, everyone's going to say data centers use as much water as you can because we're taking care of a problem. This coming session, next year, you're going to be talking, the lieutenant governor, the governor, everyone's going to be talking about property taxes and how they don't want y'all to pay them anymore. I think that's fantastic. Where are we going to get the funds? I mean, there's going to be a gap there. Data centers can provide a lot of that. There's communities building data centers, doubling their tax income from their property taxes. Last session, lots of conversation about school funding. Lots of conversation about school funding. What other business can come into a community, contribute the funding to those schools like a data center can without sending a single student to the school? Who can do that? Okay, and what the options are when it comes to community-specific problems, they're endless. I mean, and maybe that's what was done here when the data center was built, but I have commissioners call me and mayors call me and they say, what do we ask? What do we ask for? Anything. You need fire trucks? Data centers are buying fire trucks for communities. You need investment in job training programs through the high school to the local community college. Perfect, we'll do it. You know why? Because we're going to need electricians and we're going to need HVAC when this as we run this data center. Whatever they are there. There's one criteria. There's one real thing that data centers are looking at. It's like you're not going to scare them off with requests to protect natural resources or to provide their own power or anything like that. Connecting to the grid or connecting to their power source and starting operations, that's what they care about.
About their ignorance about data centers. But yes, I think there's a lot of misinformation. I do think it's coming from outside the country a lot. I think, there's a lot of bad actors out there that are trying to defeat what we've got going on here in the U.S., but I'm very sold on them. I think it's very positive. I think that, again, we could have 50,000 housetops, where one data center is. I mean, I would rather have that. And I think, what's the number? We have $15 billion in tax revenue right now, and it's going to increase another $7 billion by bringing just for the first one, yeah. So, I mean, again, it'll produce all kinds of things for our county. So I'm pro data center. And then I sent you all the thing from the Texas Association of Business that came out. And I mean, that was a really great one-sheeter that, cleared up a lot of misinformation, I think.
Like on the consumer business in the UNAS services or like maybe that service on data centers to make money and you come back to bring that. That's what.
All right. So 2 things. One, the premise of your question is premature. So far, AI is directly leading to additional jobs. So the premise that AI will cut jobs so far has been as wrong as the premise that computers would cut jobs. So first, I wouldn't take any action policy-wise on that until we actually saw that actually happened. But second, we hate income tax with fire of 1,000 suns here in Texas, and so we'd be a big fan of doing anything except. And in fact, if you also hate property taxes, as they said, you should want a data center in your neighborhood because there's no faster way to cut your property tax than to have somebody else paying it.
Well, to the jobs question, I'd say that there is a genuine concern about the number of jobs. I think when you're talking about construction versus permanent jobs, there's much more permanent jobs than people are led to believe. But I don't necessarily think AI is going to result in the end of loads of jobs. I think people need to integrate AI. Curious if you work with AI in your job. We work at a research institute. It's sacrilegious to use AI to write, in my opinion. But before AI, I was looking for a source, and I would have to click 10 links, and now I can maybe click one. So it's, for me, AI has made me significantly busier.
I'm gonna say I don't feel like we're gonna lose jobs either. I feel like at least we've just started paying for an AI, paid version. I feel like it's making us more productive, and I feel like I have better work-life balance. I'm not working near the number of hours I used to because using tools to, for receipts and all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of applications. So I feel like I'm more productive and I have less time at work. And so I don't think we're going to lose jobs personally.
Ultimately, these SMR companies, and there's 75 plus SMR companies that are at various stages of maturation, and a lot of how fast they get to nth of a kind and a regular production time is going to depend on their ability to execute. I will say this, I think AI is accelerating getting to that point where production is going to be, where we get to kind of full capacity. And I think Carson brought this up a minute ago. I think what AI data centers are unlocking it is going to make our water cheaper. It's going to enable SMRs to become an economical solution. And the point that you're making about distributed power not only has national security implications, but it actually has cost implications, because the ability to co-locate or on-site power for these large industrial loads cuts down on the infrastructure costs that are one of the biggest drivers for electricity prices right now. So a lot of that is just in the execution. I think the federal government and at least this state are doing everything they can to accelerate SMRs down that cost curve to get us to that sort of, full capacity on production. But, I think realistically, you're looking at 10 to 15 years probably to get to that point for a number of different SMR companies is my best guess.
You mentioned nuclear waste.
Oh, yeah.
The person is talking. Yep. Is there any thought to build a Korean base That's a good question. We can.
Yeah.
There's a reader.
Yeah. No, I think there's some companies out there that either are planning on using it or at least they can use it.
Appreciate all the and stuff. This we call over the city environment. I noticed this in something like a picture or because you mentioned something long and wait and it sounded like some of you that clearly exploring them. You mentioned the pricing thing, how it just part of actions price like a stable base level plans the demand is very exactly. Where does that is that in archive that you can its brain pricing or that's something you see in statute in section of in upcoming legislation? Like how do you actually base that? Is it per law or is it just now we next first time?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to price it competitively compared to wind and solar, whose prices, again, they sell their power negatively. They don't have fuel costs, they don't have operating costs, right? So that's what they have to compete with. Again, this is a market issue. We have an energy-only market with a single marginal clearing price, so everybody gets paid the exact same. So, and the cheapest bid goes in first and it goes in a ascending order until they get to demand. So, for reliable baseload power like a nuclear plant or like a natural gas plant that has these costs they have to meet, they have to weigh in, like they're going to have to bid in at the lowest possible thing they can tolerate, so they can actually participate in the market. And then everybody's getting paid that same bid. Now, we've kind of done a lot of different ancillary services and backup services on the day ahead market that they benefit from as well. But as long as we are prioritizing building wind and solar in this state, and as long as we are not valuing the reliability that different generation brings onto the grid, that's going to continue to be the thing. It's going to be, it would have to be a legislative issue. I think ERCOT they have some recommendations they're going to be making based on legislation from 2023, right? So the demand response or the dispatchable reliability reserve service, they're talking about that. Which is going to be some guaranteed income to certain generators. Now that sounds very similar to the C word, capacity market, which is a curse at the Capitol. It's going to be a big, big fight. But I think there's some momentum to make some change. You got to just figure out, like, are you trying to, get close to subsidizing reliable power, or are you doing something to address the unreliable that we've been prioritizing for so long? But again, data centers provide an opportunity, like we can grow our way out of this, especially with the federal tax incentives expired for now, because they can always come back, may have before. We might see a little bit of a slowdown in the intermittent stuff. And I think that in combination with the load growth coming to Texas does provide us an opportunity if we jump on it now.
All right, you need to meet config on Hills. All
right, three questions left.
Our panelists will be staying around. Please, some of them late. For those that I'll get chest now. My question is for Chairman Hickey. Going from a full perspective, do your background just coming up between I live about Diane, or not back a little bit in lines in Temple with data center and your own lot of people that are in very against it, and they consider themselves doing some of their votes, but ask for service, believe it, rate of price, private property price, limited go. So why do you think that there are so many people that concern that are against this? Do you think that it's just people who are easily deceived, or do you think there's possibly coordinated money to try to get people to feel turned in and not tell them to do what you do?
So that's a great question. I know some of those folks personally, and no, I wouldn't. While I disagree strongly with them and their position on opposing not just a data center if it's next door to them, but celebrating a data center being shut down in Montana, which struck me as wildly illogical. I don't actually care what anybody in Montana does, right? Short of something threatening the Constitution. There are nefarious actors with ill will who are amplifying gladly all sorts of bad things. So, but that's an amplifier and a magnifier, and it's a preying on fears, but it's not the only thing. And one of the things I tell folks is absolutely those of us who believe firmly that this is the factory floor for this generation's industrial revolution, right? It is. And those of us who've been around for a little while, have been around long enough to remember what a terrible mistake we made when we outsourced and offshored the last set of manufacturing floors. And we cannot do that. We must not do that. But it's inherent on us who believe that we cannot and must not do that, and that thank God every day that we won the war against fracking, which was the exact same stuff. I mean, literally, quote for quote, some of the exact same stuff, that it would destroy our water. AOC is showing jars of dirty mud, just like Gasland was showing jars of flaming stuff coming out of water flaming coming out of a sink, right? It's just as fake. It's just as fraud. It's exactly the same thing. Those of us who realize how big the stakes are and who are conservative, it's incumbent on us to spread the word on the truth. And the truth is not everyone is perfect. And the truth is not everything is great. And the truth is not that no one will ever use anything for evil, right? If I believed that was a necessary threshold, I wouldn't fight for Second Amendment rights. But you know what? I do, and everybody else I know in that group does, in spite of the fact that, somebody might use that for evil. Well, same goes for AI, same goes for data centers. I saw a smart conservative guy say, I don't know whether to support data centers until I know what they will do with what's inside them. That is a giant disconnect with personal responsibility, freedom of property rights. I mean, the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says we have a right to freedom of property. And the Texas Constitution takes it even further. We got to stick to it.
I want to add something to that very quickly. Bell County is a great example of two issues data center deployments facing. Now, and I'm very familiar with what's happening over there, especially in Temple. So two things. First of all, there is a well-funded, well-structured opposition that have, kind of gotten their bones doing the No Kings protests, doing anti-Trump protests, doing anti-ICE protests, very active in Bell County. And that's the case. So, and there's a second thing. One of my best friends is from Bell County. She grew up in a little town with nothing in it. She loves the rural lifestyle, and everybody else does too. They just want to live in a rural place. And that's some of the contingent that just aren't going to get on board. I think we got to give them, some of these folks a bit of a break, because I understand where they're coming from, but also this did not come from it didn't come out from nowhere, right? Like, this is the last straw for them, because a lot of rural communities they've been having solar deployed at large levels, and they've complained and they've protested. They've had wind, now battery systems, now in some cases major transmission lines like we've never seen in this state. And they know that it can very much lead to additional data center deployment. So I just want everyone to understand, like, we shouldn't hate on the opposition so much, because they do it like this is the last straw. It's not coming out of nowhere.
The first element, everything y'all said, it sounds like everything's fantastic. And we all know there's the phones take everything, nothing's all on it. So the what are the two? Being honest and that's what are they find? The one thing you have, I can regulate pressure to go on it, that there these death and the God, and what even anyone here, anyone lives anywhere nearby, they're constantly funny for it under their dishonest pseudo wall. And you could throw that.
I don't know if I can specifically address the noise thing, but I mean, look, I meant it earlier when I said that there are growing pains associated with this type of growth, and that's true whether it's, Samsung in Taylor County or whether it's a data center. I do think data centers are they demand a lot of resources, right? So they demand a lot of power, they demand a lot of water, they take a lot of resources to build, so they tax your roads. Becky mentioned that earlier. And I've heard the complaints about noise. I don't know how valid that is or not. I do think, to your point, and I think the hyperscaler community is probably starting to get the message on this, that there are things that they need to do when they come into community to alleviate some of these concerns. And I think this is a message that they're hearing, they're taking it to heart, and that is making sure that the resources that they are demanding are being replenished, plus some, so that the communities they're going into are not having to feel the burden of that. And in their defense, this is moving so incredibly fast. I don't know that they've had the ability to lay the proper groundwork, community engagement, education that is probably really was needed before they went into a lot of these communities. I think we're talking about Bell County here, but that's not the only county. I think had they had the perfect chance to do it over again, they would have been engaging much more directly and much more thoroughly with the community, trying to understand what the concerns were, whether it's noise or something else, and doing things to mitigate those things to the extent that they were, a real burden on the communities.
And I can do some of that. And no, I actually made a point earlier of saying I can't guarantee no one does anything bad with a data center, right? And I don't set my principles on assuming angels of anybody, right? But as to the noise in particular, the noisiest examples were coming from the evaporative cooling fans, which is just not done anymore. That was state of the art 20 years ago. Because don't forget, data centers have been around for decades. Data centers are not a new thing. But that noise was literally the vibration from giant moving fans, and they don't use giant moving fans anymore. But noise is absolutely a thing I care about a lot.
Felix Hayes, our president of Bastrop County. My question mean for you, Reed. I do found drop counties because they can just use your community, but also be able to really get at driving growth. I learned that in SAGMA has really did a conversation about identifying the county that actually gets stuff done, specifically addressing the permitting.
I don't know if there will be. There maybe ought to be, because in this, look, I think state leadership is dealing with this type of issue real time, and I think they understand implicitly the comments I made earlier about how we have to lean into data centers for really for the future of our state, for a lot of different reasons, national security being maybe at the top of that list. And I think next session, this will be, property taxes are going to be, a huge issue, but I think figuring out how to deal with the friction that the rapid build out of AI data centers is creating is going to be, very front and center. And it's going to be everything from how do we make sure that these data centers have the resources to how do we deal with, making sure that they can be permitted, they can be built while still not, causing the type of friction that they, can potentially cause inside a community. I think to James' point, I don't think anybody is going to assume that everybody is going to be a good actor. And I think that will be, very front and center in what the legislature, starts to think about next session, because they're going to look for a way for us to be the leader on AI. I think they're doing that for multiple reasons. National security. I think they also understand that the state that brings in the AI data centers is the state that is going to have the jobs. So if AI is going to replace jobs, it's not going to be in the state that builds the data centers, because they're going to throw off so many jobs in terms of construction, electricity, water, all the other things that we're talking about that are going to be needed. They're going to be job creation engines. And so this issue, you want to call it NIMBYism or you just want to call it community engagement. I don't know what label you want to give it, but I sure do hope they look at Bastrop County and use this as, an example of how, we can hopefully spread this across the rest of the state. And, I think it started here, kind of with Elon and the Boring Company and then SpaceX that came after. What they've done in this community, I think, is what we need to replicate. And that's, by the way, the reason that we pay so much attention to the data centers at the Nuclear Alliance is for two reasons. One is they're a big demand signal for, our members and the developers of SMRs. But there's another reason, which is we're watching them go into communities and how they're dealing with those communities, because the OG for NIMBY is nuclear. And once we begin to start building nuclear again, those projects, the ones that James are working on, are going to have the same set of issues. And, we've got to learn by looking at the example about how we engage from the county, all the way up to the state government. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I was going to say growth is inevitable, and I would challenge us to really focus on not losing our identity. We got to balance the growth with the authentic Bastrop County and the region that we live in. We've got to balance the two, because people are moving here because of what they found here. And so we've really got to focus on trying to hold on to our identity and continue to cultivate those relationships. But I think the growth is inevitable.